I'm not saying I have amazing taste when it comes to perfume, but basically. So in today's video, I get into some of the fragrances that I think are full bottle worthy from the samples I tested from February to March. Maybe there's something here that you've been eyeing yourself and you want to hear a little bit more about it. Is it any good? What does it smell like on actual skin? How does it relate to the notes? Does it actually reflect what's written about it? I'll talk a little bit about that, and maybe there's some information here that might be useful to you. Hi, I'm Janique, and I love a good perfume sample. In every little vial, there rests the possibility that I'm going to find something I am absolutely obsessed with. More often than not, though, the things that I test aren't full bottle worthy, but occasionally I happen upon a fragrance I cannot get enough of, and it leads me to buy a whole bottle that I end up enjoying to the max. So in today's video, I have 10 fragrances here that I tested in the month of February to March, and I'm going to talk about what they smell like and whether they're full bottle worthy or not. A lot of these fragrances have been hyped up, they've trended, they've been everywhere, which is why I went and got samples in the first place. But not everything was a love for me. Some of them were a lukewarm like, but let's get into what they smell like, because maybe there's something here that you might enjoy even if I didn't.
Looks like I lost my favorite times.
So for a little bit of context, I do love a floral fragrance, especially when it's blended with fruit. I enjoy a citrus opening. I love amber and sandalwood, oak moss. I do enjoy a green note. The only accord that I have a little bit of trouble with are spices. So if something is heavily spiced with like incense or myrrh, frankincense, I find I have a bit of a harder time getting into it. I am not an oud girly. Occasionally oud shows up in something and I like it anyway, but that's usually the exception, not the rule. So that's a little bit of context for you. I am not somebody who like loves a super unisex fragrance. Give me ultra feminine all day, every day. Give me a good floral, some tuberose, some gardenia, some jasmine, some iris, and I will be happy as long as you blend that in with a little bit of mango, a little bit of pineapple, a little bit of strawberry. I'll get into it. As for gourmands, I do enjoy the occasional gourmand, but it is not my go-to when it comes to fragrances. Vanilla, I don't treat vanilla as gourmand. I know it is, but I treat vanilla as its own separate category that I'm absolutely obsessed with. But if something has like milk, marshmallows, praline, something like that, I might enjoy it, but it would not be my everyday fragrance because I don't want to smell like food day in, day out. I really do just prefer to smell like flowers. So the first fragrance I want to talk about is Nishane Tero, which is described as a fresh and warm, spicy fragrance. I don't think that description actually captures what this fragrance is like. I think a better description is salted, peppery caramel, because that's actually what it is. So even though caramel is listed as the opening note, I would say it carries all the way through to the dry down. You get that sticky, sweet caramel all throughout. In the opening though, we have pink and black pepper with salt. Now I mentioned before that I find spices challenging, and usually so, yes. Pepper and salt is an exception for me. I do love a peppery opening and a salt opening because I find salt to be so summery and fun and lively, and the combination of the three makes it smell very gourmand without being overly so. It doesn't quite smell like food. I think the combination of the salt and the pepper and the caramel kind of moves it away from food specifically and takes it into this sort of sexier version versus cozier version of a gourmand. Now in the mid we have cinnamon, we also have some vetiver and some sandalwood, and so we have this really grounded and full and big fragrance that is incredibly lovely. On top of that, the performance is dope, right? I think, Nishane is known for the quality of their fragrances, and this is no exception. So for me, this was a 9 out of 10 easy. I've heard great things about other fragrances in their line, and before I spring for a full bottle of one of them, I would want to try some other fragrances to make sure I'm not just going with the first thing I tried. But as far as an introduction is concerned, I think this is an amazing introduction to the brand. Nishane Tero, 9 out of 10 for me, easy. The next fragrance I want to talk about is Olfactive Studios Iris Shot. Now, here's a fragrance that I objectively know is a good one. Based on the blend of the notes and the way it presents, it's just not a fragrance that I would ever want to purchase or own or anything. It is not for me, but here is why. It opens up with aldehydes, and I find aldehydes to be one of those notes that you either love or hate. And I am squarely closer to the hate category than I am to the love category. However, I would say the way aldehydes presents in Iris Shot is better than I've come across in most fragrances. So to balance out the aldehydes, they have carrot seed in here, which gives like an animalic kind of smell. And I would never have realized that the balance of aldehydes and animalic is a pleasant one. They also have iris in here, which makes it fluffy and a little bit powdery. Not overly powdery, but a little powdery, which is something. They also have almonds in here, and the almond is very creamy. Not very, very creamy. Not like lactonic creamy or coconut creamy, but almond milk creamy. That level of creaminess. And the combination of the iris with a little bit of pockets of air with the almond make it feel a little bit smooth but a little bit lighter on the skin. So I think the combination of everything together is beautiful. There are some woods and some musk in here that help everything come together. I would have preferred if this fragrance had a hint more sweetness. So if it had some orange blossom or some tuberose, or it had something, I don't know, like caramel or pralines in here, sort of push the sweetness just a tad. I would give this a 6.5 out of 10 for me personally. With a few adjustments, say if I were to own this and I had to layer it, I would definitely layer it with a vanilla to help to boost that creaminess that we get from the almonds already and to push up that sweetness to, I think, balance out the aldehydes a little bit more. But on the face of it, I think it is a really good fragrance. I think if you like these kinds of notes, especially aldehydes, because even though it's listed as an opening note, it carries through the entire fragrance. So if you do like aldehydes, I think this is a great presentation of it. If you don't like anything too overly sweet, I think this is also a good presentation of that. But I think for me, for what it is, I think I would have needed it to be a little creamier and a little bit sweeter and with less aldehydes or no aldehydes for me to actually enjoy this. So for me, it was a 6.5 out of 10, and this was just not full bottle worthy for me. Jean Paul Gaultier's La Belle is a 2019 fragrance that's trended, gone out of fashion, and come back multiple times, and people seem to love this one. It's described as a fruity vanilla floral, and because I have so many of those in my collection, I haven't gone out of my way to try this one. And then my mom reached out and she was like, have you heard of this one? How is it? What do you think? You know, once something makes it over to Instagram and people are talking about it constantly, it's saturated the market. But anyway, I went out of my way to get a sample to try it out, and I will say I get the hype. It is a, like it said, fruity vanilla floral fragrance, and if those are the kinds of notes that you enjoy, then you're going to enjoy this one. The thing that makes this a little bit more interesting, and maybe more than a little more interesting, is the presence of leather in this, and there is vetiver in this, which is a stronger, greener note. I think it makes the fragrance have like a lot more depth and interest. It's not your basic flat floral vanilla, you know, fruity fragrance. It has a lot more going on. No, pear isn't my favorite opening note. I find it to be a non-note. I don't know if that's a controversial statement, but for me, pear isn't quite sweet enough or tart enough. It isn't on its own making any kind of bold statement, which I think while a lot of people do like pear, for me, it's just sort of, it's just there, right? Like it isn't an exciting note for me. Really what we're getting is this balance of fruit with vanilla with things like leather and vetiver. I think it's an incredibly sexy fragrance. I think that hint of leather and that hint of animalic, that hint of smoke and vetiver and greenness, like boost it to smell really fantastic and sexy on the skin. I think where you have fragrances like Voce Viva that feel very like classy and pulled together, this feels a little bit raunchier in what it's giving, and the bottle is also real sexy as well. So this for me is on the wish list at the moment. moment, having tried the sample. It's not the top of the wish list, but I would give this a 9.5 out of 10. Easily, especially at the price point. I think if you're looking for something a little bit sexier than something like Miss Dior or Donna Born in Roma, this is a good place to head if that's your vibe. The next sample I tried was Amouage's Interlude Black Iris. Now I messed up on this one. I saw Iris in the name, added it to cart and checked out without realizing it's specifically listed as a masculine scent. Now, a lot of Amouage's fragrances are listed as unisex, so when they list something as masculine, you should listen. But I didn't pay attention, and it came to my home, and I decided to try it out, and it was only after I tested it that I realized it was such a masculine scent, and that's what it is. It is a scent for men. So before I get into the notes or anything, I'll say just for me personally, it's a 3 out of 10 for me. This isn't a fragrance that I would ever buy for myself, and it's because it's an ultra masculine fragrance. But would I want to smell this on a guy? Absolutely. I would give this an 8 or 9 out of 10 in terms of how beautifully blended everything is. It's just not something that I would wear myself, but I would gift this to somebody. So let's get into what's in here. So it opens up with a lot of spices. We get some pepper in the opening, and in the mids we have a lot of balsamic and resinous notes like amber, and we have opanox, and we have labdanum as well. So it's really heavy and thick and really lays really nicely on the skin. There's also vanilla in the base that offers a bit of sweetness and roundness and smoothness. The thing in here that is not up my alley at all is, like I mentioned before, I don't really like incense, and there's a lot of heavy incense in here. Sometimes when there's a lot of heavy incense in a fragrance and it's too fresh, like it's too aromatic, it's too fougere, I find it kind of off-putting. But I think the combination of vanilla and really heavy amber in this helps to smooth it out so it doesn't have as many sharp edges, and the fragrance ends up being incredibly masculine and sexy, but also kind of comforting at the same time. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Just a quick reminder, because I don't want y'all to forget. Into a very good girl. Now, it wasn't what I expected. I don't know why I thought it would be, I don't know, fresher and brighter, but it is an ultra sweet fragrance. No. There is a lychee and a red currant in the opening. Now, red currant is one of the sweetest fruits you can open with, but that's not the star of the opening. It's the lychee. It is such a real life smell of lychee in terms of like the bit of tartness at the back, the very pronounced kind of tropical elements that you find in a lychee fragrance, and then you have rose in the mid, which I think offers a bit of freshness and greenness. So this is not quite a young rose because it's not super green, and it's not a mature rose which has that very distinct rosy smell. It's something in the middle where you can very distinctly smell the rose behind the lychee. What's really playing to the front is that really tropical lychee note that carries throughout. So I would describe this as a fun party fragrance, and the kind of thing that would be great if you are looking for something ultra sweet, ultra feminine, ultra youthful. I think this meets that brief, and with the bottle and everything else, I think it's a fantastic fragrance. I would say for me, this is an 8 or an 8.5 out of 10. I think for me, the thing that I would prefer is a tad bit more depth and balance. So maybe if it had something like black amber or a darker wood or a fresher and more pronounced floral in here, something like jasmine or lily of the valley, to balance out the ultra sweetness of the lychee, maybe I'd enjoy it more. I think I could also see it if it had like a little bit more creaminess to kind of pare back some of that piercing sweetness, something like almonds or coconut, I don't know, or even tuberose to offer a bit of creaminess, some orange blossom that has a little bit of animalic. Basically, I like it. I don't love it. I think there are other tropical fragrances in my collection that I think present in a similar but more balanced way, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think if you're looking for that ultra fun party fragrance, this meets that brief. So for me, 8.5 with it layered, I could like it a little bit more, enjoy it a little bit more. But to start off, I think it's a good one. It's just not a great one for me. The next fragrance I want to get into is from Carner, Barcelona, and the name of the fragrance is Marabella. Now, here's the thing. I think this is an incredibly pretty rose fragrance. I think it's similar to things like Idole from Lancome, just not quite as sweet and smooth as those. It does have a lot more freshness. It has some green notes in here. There's some Bulgarian rose, there's peony. You have a lot of freshness. There's some citrus here, some woods. It's fresh, it's bright, it's lively. It's the kind of fragrance you would wear to the office. I would compare this to something like Lalique L'Amour, just not quite as soapy and shampooy as that. So it is a lovely rose fragrance, but I don't think it's necessarily anything special. I think the most interesting thing going on with this one is the pepper in the opening that opens up really lively and fun with the rose. The rose in here is not a mature rose. It's very young, it's very green, it's very effervescent and fun. I think it's a fantastic floral fragrance, but for the price, I don't think it's doing nearly enough. This is a niche fragrance, and niche fragrances usually cost a premium. And I think if you love Carner Barcelona and this is a fragrance house that you collect from, that makes sense. But I think you can find fragrances that are similar to this that don't have this kind of price tag. So I think of things like Oscar de la Renta's Rosa Amor is slightly sweeter. Ralph Lauren's Romance isn't far off from this, and again, not as expensive. So I think if you do like a fresher floral fragrance with hints of green with a little bit of pepper, those are out there. Like, this combination of notes isn't revolutionary, but for the price, I think you can find 2-3 fragrances that do something similar. So for me, this is something I've never buy. I think this is like a 6 out of 10. Not because I don't like it, I really do, but for this price point, I need something far more interesting. On a completely different note, another floral that I think just does everything better, and is Goldfield and Banks's Southern Bloom. Let me just say 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10! This is a fantastic fruity floral fragrance. It leans more floral than fruity, but it is beautiful. We have things like Ylang Ylang and jasmine in this. We have some mandarin orange. We have amber. We got musk. We got sandalwood. We have such a beautiful mix of floral, fruit, woods, and musk with amber in here. We even get a little bit of coconut for a little bit of sweetness and smoothness. This fragrance, it is stunning to me. As somebody who loves a floral leaning, fruity floral, this is the right combination. No, I would say the musk in here almost smells, and the amber in here kind of smells like black amber, and black amber usually smells a little bit smoky and a little bit darker and mysterious, and that's what you're getting in here. So I don't know what that is coming from, right? I don't know why it smells so dark and mysterious, but you do get that. This is not a work fragrance. It's not a daytime fragrance. It's just very sexy. I would say this is a nighttime special occasion type of perfume, and it sits on the skin really well. It performs beautifully. It's just a phenomenal fragrance and a fantastic introduction to Goldfield and Banks. I am just saying that as somebody who, like, I am the audience for this type of fragrance, and because of that, I can be a little jaded because I've tried so many fruity florals. I was pleasantly surprised by this one, and it was an easy 10 out of 10 for me. I am not a Jo Malone girly. Let me just say that to start off. Jo Malone fragrances, I don't think I'm the right audience for it. I do love an overdeveloped fragrance that has all of these competing notes and they're coming together in this kind of chorus and it's singing to me. Whereas like these one note, couple of note fragrances, especially at the price point we find Jo Malone, is just not the kind of thing that I go for, because I like my fragrances to be a lot more complex and not as stripped back. But I do get there's an audience for this. And so For all the Jo Malone fragrances that I have tried, I've never been blown away. Even if I've liked it enough, I've never been blown away with a Jo Malone fragrance. It's an exception for me. This fragrance, which is the Nectarine Blossom and Honey fragrance, is an exception. I would say by far, so far anyway, the best Jo Malone fragrance that I have tried, and it's the only one I would ever want to own, at least again so far. So what is this? This is really green notes mixed with a lot of fruit and a little bit of floral. And I find the combination of things to be really masterful. Here's why. I think a lot of times when you put green notes, which a lot of times can read kind of fruity anyway, with fruit, it can just sort of read as kind of flat and one-dimensional and not doing too much. But that's not what we get from here, from this fragrance. So we have different kinds of green notes playing together. We have things like petitgrain, we have vetiver, we have other green notes like cut grass, right? And then we have a bunch of fruit. We got plum, we got nectarine, we got peach, we have some citrus in here, all playing really well together. So we have this sweet, heavy, dark fruit with these lighter, sweeter, more effervescent fruit. And then we have, for the floral element, we have black locust, which kind of smells like orange blossom, which is a white floral. It's a little bit creamy, a little bit animalic. So together, they come together to create this like slightly creamy, but not very creamy, slightly creamy, heavy fruit. It's very round, it's very full, but then we get this cut of the cut grass greenness and the petitgrain just cutting through to offer a whole lot of balance, and then that vetiver at the base to ground everything, to make it perform well, to make it last really long, and to give it some much needed grounding and power. It's like adding like a battery to the back of this fragrance to make it way more interesting. I'm in love with this. This is a 9 out of 10 for me, easy, and by far the best Jo Malone fragrance that I've tried. I'm going to continue to wear this because I am really excited about this. I think this would be a fantastic summer daytime fragrance. I think it would just sit on the skin really nicely and perform really well in the hot sun, because you don't want anything too overpowering, too sweet. I think the balance of greenness and fruit, the little hint of floral here, would be great for like a daytime lunch brunch out with friends while it's warm out. I am absolutely a fan of this one. Thank you, Jo Malone, and thank you for changing my mind, because I had written you off and I was wrong. I was wrong about that. Givenchy's Irresistible. No, I've not gone out of my way to try this one. I fully expected it to be pretty standard fare when it comes to fragrances, because it has pear and musk mallow in the opening, and we got iris and rose in the mid, and we got sandalwood in the base. Like, we've all heard it, right? Like, all of those things together sound pretty standard, and there are a lot of fragrances that have that combination. And so I don't think Irresistible is a revolutionary fragrance. I think it's an easy one for Givenchy to make, because this is a combination, and it's a combination that works for people, right? Here's the thing. I compared it because I tried like a few fragrances today. I compared it against Very Good Girl, and I compared it against Belle. I would say Belle is a far sexier fragrance because it has that really like dark depth and mystery to it that kind of smells like there's black amber or some sort of tobacco in it. I don't think it does, but it smells like it does. This one is a lot cleaner, fresher, brighter, and everyday. I would say this is in the sort of same wheelhouse that you would put things like Donna Born in Roma or Prada Paradox or Voce Viva. So I don't think you need to own those and this one. I think if you own those and you're obsessed and you want more of the same, then this is great. But if you like those and you're looking for something slightly different, then maybe this does it, because it does have that rose and that iris, which offers a little bit of powderiness, so it's not as clean and sharp as some of the others. It doesn't have that sort of smoky depth as Belle, so if you don't like that sort of smell of black amber, then this might be the one for you. I think it's a very classy fragrance. I think it's a very classic fragrance. This is an 8 out of 10 for me. Not because it isn't good. I think if I didn't have anything like this, I'd have been like, oh, 10 out of 10, I need to go get it right now. But I do have a lot of fragrances that smell pretty similar. And so I am not compelled to go pick this one up because those offer slight bit more interest. So for example, Donna Born Aroma dries down a lot fresher than this. And like I was saying, La Belle dries down a lot smokier than this, and Voce Viva is just pretty. I think it's the floral notes in there. I think it has some floral elements that I think are a lot sexier and creamier and thicker that make it sit on the skin a little bit better. And it's a little bit sweeter, so it pushes the envelope a little bit more. Everything in this a little bit more restrained. Like I mentioned about pear tends to be the note that I think people add in for sweetness without disrupting the other notes, because the note pear pairs well with other notes without changing how they smell. It's like a boosting note in a lot of ways without having much of a personality of its own. I don't know if that's a controversial thing to say, but the pear is the main fruit in here, which again is meant to boost everything else without having much of a personality. And like I've mentioned before, I like my fragrances to have a bit more personality. Last up, I have Parfums de Marleys Italia. No, this is a musky, powdery, irisy fragrance, and I think it's a very pretty one. It's very restrained, it's very ladylike, it's very proper. I imagine someone drinking tea while wearing this. It doesn't scream, it sort of kind of whispers, and I think it's very pretty. I think it's ultra feminine. I very often find that these kinds of powdery irises can read a little matronly. This doesn't, and I don't know why that is. There's something about this that feels like early 20s headband, tennis skirt kind of energy, where it feels very youthful, very feminine, but very proper, very elegant. There's something, yes, that's the word. It's very elegant in its presentation. Now I'm a little too ratchet for this one. It's a little too restrained for me. It's not my favorite from Parfums de Marly. I think it's incredibly pretty. I think there is a scenario where I want to wear this. I don't know when that is. Maybe if I go to English tea with the girls one day, this is a kind of fragrance I'd want to put on. But for the most part, I want my fragrances to be a little bit bolder because I'm a little bolder. This reminds me of the good daughter version of something like Mugler's Alien. Just slightly sweeter, right? Like the good daughter, the good sister version of Mugler's Alien, where we get that muskiness, that powderiness, but it's a little sweeter. It's a little bit more demure. The powderiness is a little bit more restrained. The musk isn't as in your face. Everything is paired all the way back, but feels ultra youthful at the same time. I would say objectively, this is like a 9 out of 10, but the fact that it costs like over $400 a bottle, I would say for me, it's like a 6. Like the likelihood that I would ever buy this it's not gonna happen. There are other Parfums de Marly fragrances that I would jump at the chance of owning way faster than this one, but I'm glad I tried it. So I think my favorite fragrance out of everything that I tested is maybe Goldfield and Banks' Southern Bloom, with La Belle coming up in the 2nd spot, and in the 3rd place round, unexpected, Jo Malone, Nectarine, Blossom and Honey. Who is she? Who am I right now loving this Jo Malone fragrance heavy? I would say the one I'm least likely to ever purchase is probably Amouage's Interlude Black Iris, because it's a very masculine scent. I fucked up. This was not for me, meant for me. I am not the audience for this, but I do think it smells nice for somebody who loves a masculine scent. And I posted a video about this before, and a bunch of guys were like, I love this one. I'm like, go ahead, love it. It's just not something I would ever wear. But I think this was an overall successful round of testing fragrances and samples and all the things, because I found some real gems here that are now on my wish list. So that's everything for me. Thank you so much for stopping by, checking out the video of these 10 perfumes I tried from February to March. I will be trying more. I have too many samples to get through to ever stop making these videos. It's a little bit of a problem. It's gotten out of control. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, like the video, subscribe, keep coming back for more, leave a comment. I would love to hear from you. That's everything from me. I'm Janique, a perfume lover, sample collector apparently, and that's everything. Love you guys. Bye.
You've been on the mind.